Head to Safeway this week and enjoy these amazing deals. Clip coupons from the weekly mailer or download them from the Safeway app to breeze through checkout. Get Overjoyed Boutique Dozen Roses for $24.99. Hand-dipped Belgian chocolate-covered strawberries, 4 to 18 counts, start at $7.99 per package. USDA Choice Boneless Beef Top Sirloin Steak Value Pack or Boneless Beef Tri-Tip Roast Untrimmed Twin Pack, just $5.99 per pound member price. Visit Safeway.com for more details. See you in the aisles.
Welcome to the Going to Killing City podcast, a historical look at murder in Kansas City. Here are your hosts, Jamie Green and Alex Greenwood.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Going to Killing City, November. It's already November.
Stop it.
I know. People can't see me, but I do have my Mr. Rogers sweater on. We're at this point in my life where I just don't give a shit what I look like. As long as I'm comfortable, I'm happy with it. So, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. I just, Jane, stop this crazy thing. Jane, it's work is kicking my butt, but it's nice to be needed. I keep telling myself that. I just like to be needed a little less sometimes.
Sure.
But no, you know what? I'll tell you, and I know we'll get to it, but kudos to you on going solo without your compadre and just masterfully handling the interview with Eli Frankel. I just wanted to say that from the get.
I felt like I was cheating on you. I felt like it was, our marital vows.
I did too. I was
Isn't kind of a little weird.
Well,
it was
I guess so.
I didn't know we were in a free love relationship, but apparently we are.
Well, apparently we are. But it's all for the good of the order. And I just wanted to say that from the get. I don't want to jump out of our run of show here, but I just wanted to say that it was a good listen.
I appreciate that. So you got to listen to it?
Yes. Right. I mean, I could give you thoughts on it, but I'd probably jump.
After we listen to it.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, this month's episode is brought to us by our good friends at Casey Beer Company. Casey Beer Company wants you to know all about their Schwarz beer. I should say that as Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Is it Schwarz? Is that how you pronounce Schwarz? Is it Schwarz?
I have no German in me. I'm like the one guy from Nebraska that has 0% German blood.
My dad's parents, my dad's grandparents were literally off the boat German, so I have a lot of German going on in here.
So how would you pronounce this?
Well, I need to look at it again. It's not spelled like Schwarz, like Schwarzenegger, because Schwarzenegger's name, I believe, means blacksmith. But this is not spelled the same. Schwarz, is it with an O? I'm trying to. I don't have it.
SCHWARZBIER, and then in parentheses it says black lager. So maybe that's what it means.
See, there's Schwarz. That's it, and that could be like a Schwarzbier. That's what it sounds like to me. But don't. Well, wait. How can you quote me? How can you know you're recording this? But Schwarzbier. But it sounds. How about this? It sounds incredible. And if and this is not just me saying it because they're our wonderful sponsors. I'm not a huge beer guy. I'm more of a spirits guy. But this is the time of year when I really get into beer. And this is the kind of beer I would order. I would belly up and order this Schwarzbier.
Yeah, because it's got 3 of our favorite things in it. Not only does it have alcohol in it, it also has roasted coffee, and I know both of us are caffeine addicts, and chocolate. I mean,
yeah, it's true. It's true. There is, there's this great British detective, fictional, Inspector Morse, and he loved pints of lager, really that black stuff, and how can you, I thought we were having lunch and he's hoisting one of those. He goes, this is pure food. And that's what I love about stuff like this Schwarzbier is that it's got that really substantial, but I don't think but it looks to me like too, though, in the taste profile, it's not too heavy though, because I know
5%.
Yeah. My wife would be like, it's going to be heavy, isn't it? I'm like, give it a shot. I think you're going to like it.
speaking of real quick aside, so for people who know my playing out, and I'm going to pimp that in a minute, but my cohort is Matt Furman. And we used to play at this place out in Lenexa that was had its own brewery. And he didn't look at the ABF of the beer that he ordered, and it was 12%.
Oh my goodness.
It got to be a very interesting end of the set. Let's just say that. So
I would, oh my gosh, I've never seen Matt anything but in complete control of himself. I wonder what that was like.
It was amusing. It was amusing.
You just get more and more mellow when you drink. You just kind of, hey man, it's all good.
Totally. Become Matthew McConaughey. All right. So thank you to Casey Beer Company. A personal shout out to James Arcano. And so this is a seasonal beer. It's just in the winter. So go see it. Casey Beer Company in Waldo. They are opening a second location on Lenexa next year, but it is not open yet. But we really appreciate Casey Beer for being our sponsor this month.
We do. Thank you.
And next up, people, and I'm gonna scold a little bit. If you already were a member on our Substack, you would have known about this already. But we are doing a live event at Tuesday, December 9th. 4:30 to 6:30 at the Speakeasy Spa in the Crossroads. And it is free to come to. All right. Here you go, folks. Free tacos, free sangria. And then Mr. Greenwood and myself are both going to make a killer cocktail. And I'm going to talk about perhaps one of the worst Christmases ever in Kansas City. It's Christmas 1909 at the Swope Mansion. That's what I'm going to discuss as I make my killer cocktail. So it's free, but if you want, space is limited. It's just not us that are going to be bringing people. The people from Speakeasy Spa are going to have their members. You have to email us at killingcitypod@gmail.com to get on the list. Put in the title Speakeasy Spa so I know what you're wanting to do. We have limited space. Get on it, people. The sooner or later, free booze, free tacos, free chair massages, and one lucky bastard's going to win a free 90-minute massage to be used at Speakeasy Spa. It doesn't get much better than that. So happy hour, free drinks, free food, free massages. Does it get any better than that? I don't think it does.
I'm going to go with no, it does not get any better than that. And you have been a busy guy making that happen with our friends there. Gosh, I had it in my head. It was December 4th. So I'm glad I checked that. I heard you there because I got to get that time off so I can get from.
We need you there.
Well, I'm not. I know what happens when I leave you alone.
I don't want to fly solo again.
Yeah, well, I know what happens. You get the wandering eye, and then I've lost you forever. So
that Chris Wolf, I like the cut of his jib.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Good stuff. Smart people talking about horrible things in a great way.
Real quick, and this is just my pimping the band. My acoustic duo with the Matt Furman. This drops on the 15th of November. We are playing on Tuesday, November 18th at Sail Away Wine in North Kansas City. I know Mr. Greenwood has come and watched us play, and I appreciate that. This is a self-serve wine place. I mean, come on. And it's early. This is old man hours, 5:30 to 8:30 on a Tuesday. You could be home.
Give me that date again.
It is Tuesday, November 18th.
Okay. Very good.
Sail Away Wine.
Sail away.
No.
Come sail away with the Flatwater duo.
I will say, if one of our listeners comes up, don't talk to me. Now, this is insider baseball for musicians. Don't try to talk to me during the set. Okay.
While he's playing.
I can't believe I have to say that out loud, but this has happened more than one occasion.
I've seen people do this to you, and you're trying. You're just like, I am singing and I am strumming, and you're trying to speak with me. Right. Okay.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So wait till the set break. But if you come up to me at set break and say, "Hey, Jamie, I am one of your listeners on," I will buy you a drink for showing up. So
whoa.
All right. So that's that. So we're gonna get started. So yes. I was at Rainy Day Books. Alex, you're going to be jealous. I got to see the basement of Rainy Day Books.
I've never seen that.
Green room, if you will, almost.
Wow.
Before. And so, yeah, we did this live event. The one thing that I think we want to talk about really, the Leila Welsh case is the Kansas City connection, and it's horrible. but I won't spoil anymore. We'll let that. So we're just going to delve in, and the first voice you're going to hear is Chris Wolf. He's with the UMKC. He's their historian. He does ghost tours at UMKC, so we'll put that in the show notes. You want to go walk around. I know we did the Epperson House. That was one of Alex's really cool episodes, so he does that. But he's the first voice you're going to hear. You know what I sound like. Eli Frankel has a really cool radio voice. He could do voiceover. So with that, let's just delve in.
Well, thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Chris Wolf. I'm, among other things, the campus historian at UMKC. And about 3 years ago, I got this email from someone named Eli Frankel. Now, in my role as the historian of the university, I get people who all the time will email me and they'll have questions about the university's history. Sometimes it's journalists, sometimes it's students who want help with the paper, sometimes it's weirdos. And so I responded to Eli and said, well, why don't you come on by the coffee shop at the university and I can answer any questions you have. And he says, well, that's going to be difficult. I live in Los Angeles. And I thought, well, definitely a weirdo then.
He was right.
Yeah. So we did a Zoom call, and I was thinking, why in the world is someone from Los Angeles asking questions about UMKC history? And I'm like, he's interested in the Leila Welsh murder. And sure enough, as we started having a conversation, that is exactly what he was interested in. And when he discovered that not only did I know about it, but that I knew things about it that he didn't know, by the end of the conversation, we'd agreed that I would help him research for his project. He wasn't sure at that point whether it was going to be a podcast or a book or what he wanted to do, but I agreed that I would help him. And that was the moment that we met and really embarked on this journey.
Discover the fun of live music with a night out at the San Francisco Symphony. Gather with friends and be inspired while you take in some of the most famous music in the world. Experience iconic classical works, breathtaking orchestral brilliance, and the power of music to inspire. Tickets start at just $30. Find your concert at sfsymphony.org. That's sfsymphony.org.
And I'm just here because his PR person called and said, you want to interview Eli? And I said, sure, why not? Let Eli do the work. I don't have to actually research this one. I'll let Eli do all the work on it. So if you haven't, we're on season 3 of Killing City, and barbecue jazz, of course, we're known for, but we kill a lot of people in this town, sadly. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's right.
Well, Eli, tell us why the Black Dahlia murder. What is it about this case that has caused you to dedicate so much of your time and your energy to solving it?
Yeah, I think if any question I can get, that may be the most difficult one to answer, because ultimately, I don't know why I'm so interested in this case, and I don't know that anybody else really does either. It's one of the most famous unsolved murder cases in the United States. And there's lots of tangential reasons why it could be really popular. It's Hollywood in the 1940s, and there's some celebrity elements to it, and it's post-war era, and then of course the mystery of Elizabeth Short and what was done to her and who did it, and this kind of ultimate enigma within a riddle. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of other murders in American history that have a lot of the same elements. And so, I've always wondered about this. Why? Why are we interested in this? Why am I? And I don't really know. So, I'm hoping somewhere along the journey it'll all make sense. But yeah, I got interested in this when I was in my 20s. Like a lot of people in Los Angeles and Hollywood, the Black Dahlia really looms large. It's kind of it haunts in the background of the city, and especially if you work in Hollywood, if you live near Hollywood, there's this sense that there is a darkness underneath the surface. It's very shiny and bright, but beneath the surface is sort of a dark underbelly. And I think that the case, in a lot of ways, reflects that darkness, and people still kind of identify with it, who are out there or work in entertainment, no matter where you are. But yeah, I got pulled into it, and I was one of those like intense passive hobbyists who listened to every podcast and watched, every documentary that had been done on it, read every book, every article. And I think at some point I felt like, well, everything there is to learn about this case has been researched and has been printed, and I continue to read articles that are interesting analyzing it. But it felt like the research had really come to sort of a standstill, and I just accepted that, well, that's the body of knowledge, that's what we know. And then began to look a little deeper and found out that there was a lot more for us to learn.
So, there's a million famous murders out there, and in all these murders, it's usually the killer that gets nicknamed. It's Jack the Ripper, it's Son of Sam. But in this case, it's the victim who receives the nickname, and it's made her almost like a mythic figure. So talk to us a little bit about the difference between the real Elizabeth Short and the myth of the Black Dahlia.
Yeah. So, it was actually Chris who, 2 weeks ago, made that point, and I never thought about that all these other murders, like Son of Sam, Night Stalker, the Rattlesnake murder, they're either named for the killer or some element of the kill itself. This is really one of the only murders where the victim has, it gives the title to the murder. But what it's done subsequently over the years is, instead of putting the focus on her as a real person, it's turned her into this image that never existed, this, kind of exotic dark flower, the bloom of death, the Black Dahlia. It's such an intriguing name, and it really is the gateway into the murder. People see that title, that name, and ever since 1947, they want to know, what is this? What is a Black Dahlia? And as a result, what we know about her and then what's been told about her and how it's been distorted over the years, they've taken a 22-year-old woman who was very different from the image that would eventually surface in the media and is still ever present in podcasts and books, and turned her into that exotic flower. And I think one of the things I really set out to do when I started with the book is we need to focus on her. There's so much out there about the Black Dahlia, but all the information about who she was as a person, it's just, everyone's sort of regurgitating the same 7 or 8 pages and rearranging it, but the information is the same. And I thought, who was she? How did she think? How did she feel? Why was she doing what she was doing? What were her motives? Who was she as a real person? And maybe not only could we understand and honor and respect who the victim is, but maybe we could find some of the answers to the mysteries about her last days and weeks, which have just loomed large in the case for almost 8 decades. Maybe if we listened to her and her words and in her letters and her correspondence and, her conversations with friends, that some of the answers might become more apparent, which is exactly what happened.
And I would say, and you have Leila Welsh, who's the direct opposite. Nobody really, unless they were still alive, this case has pretty much disappeared. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Is it because the acquittal? I hope everybody's read the book. I'm sorry. Is it that? Is it because the Second World War happened, within months? Pearl Harbor starts. I mean, she's really been kind of forgotten.
Yeah,
Eli. So.
I mean, look, and Chris may disagree with me here, and I think that one of the reasons the Black Dahlia has become so ubiquitous and so famous is that it took place in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and Hollywood loves a good story no matter what it is, and if it's juicy and they can turn it into a media sensation, they do, and it gets projected, and so the Black Dahlia is in many ways a creation of the city of Los Angeles.
Are high-interest credit cards or personal loans weighing you down? Unlock gives homeowners a smarter option. With a home equity agreement, you can tap into your home's equity for cash today. There are no monthly payments. Here's how it works. Unlock provides funds upfront and in exchange, shares in a portion of your home's future value. That means you keep control with the flexibility to use your equity your way. Pay off bills, invest in home improvements, or set aside savings for peace of mind. For thousands of homeowners, Unlock has been the key to moving forward without the pressure of another payment. Put your equity to work for you. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
And, you know, I think that in a lot of ways in studying the case, and again, tell me if you disagree, I think that Kansas City, after the trial, there was a 2-year trial for the brother of Leila Welsh, who, you know, they tried to railroad into being, you know, he was the killer, and obviously the evidence was very weak, and he was acquitted in the case, but it really wrenched the city, if you will. It was kind of a 2 years of very dramatic but disturbing testimony and court proceedings. I think at the end of it, the city just wanted to move on. Kansas City is not necessarily a city, from what I can tell, that is trying to find dramatic stories to kind of create its lore, especially from murder cases. And so I just think that a lot of it has to do with culture and where the case takes place, and then how people, you know, whether they want to make something of it in subsequent decades or they don't.
I really agree with that sentiment.
Oh, good. I was worried.
The murder of Leila Welsh happened at the tail end of the Pendergast regime here in Kansas City. And it was, in many ways, the whole investigation and the eventual trial of her brother was all a result of the last days of the Pendergast machine, the last gasps for power of the machine. And I think Kansas City was really ready to put the whole Pendergast era behind it. And so I think that's part of the reason why this was forgotten, because it was tied up with those last memories of the Pendergast regime. And of course, more here in recent years, now we celebrate the Pendergast, era here in Kansas City, and we have, a restaurant called Tom's Town, and, it's almost a fun aspect of Kansas City's history. But, in the latter half of the 20th century, it was something that the city really wanted to forget.
And it was a dangerous place. I know we talked about this yesterday. You might want to talk a little bit more about how the Bush family actually had somebody come and walk their kids to school at Kansas City in the time. And you kind of got into it a little bit with your book about, whatever happened to Leila around the block. There were other horrible cases, not, in about the same time. So talk a little bit about Kansas City in that era, because, I think it's romanticized. Like you said, you can go to Tom's Town and have, a cocktail. But this was a scary place back then. And maybe that's part of why there were so many murders in Kansas City at that time. Is that part of the reason that maybe she was also...
I mean, it's in the 1920s, I'm sure many of you know this, and I don't mean to be talking about your town as if I'm some authority on history here. That's Chris, so I'm going to turn it over to him in just a second. But it's fascinating. I learned so much about Kansas City in doing the research, and it's really interesting that during Prohibition, the town essentially was the only open city. You could come here and drink, and you wouldn't get hassled. And the Pendergast machine made sure that money and alcohol were flowing. And as a result, it attracts so many jazz musicians and other artists from around the country. And then when Prohibition comes around, you've got when the 1930s come around, and the Works Progress Administration and all the the construction that was going on. There was actually activity happening here in Kansas City, even though the Depression was raging. It really was a unique city in a lot of ways, but a part of the Pendergast rule was that they had money flowing in from illicit sources. Criminals, there was an agreement in town that as long as criminals kicked back to the Pendergast organization, they would be allowed to operate within parameters. And so an environment grew where, it attracted a lot of people on the wrong side of the law. And in general, gambling was rampant. It was in grocery stores. It was at gas stations. There was a lot of illicit activity going on. And I think in that environment, it's permissive, and it's also attracting people from around the country who maybe don't have, the city's best interests at heart. And to that point, it's just, criminality and murder was very, very prevalent. And in fact, I thought this was interesting. Chicago is always known as sort of the murder capital of the 20s and 30s and the gangster era. But per capita, Kansas City actually had more murders during that time. This was the Wild West in a lot of ways.
And you got to realize that the Kansas City Police Department was so corrupt. Not only was the machine in charge of it, but organized crime had infiltrated it. Gangsters were on the force.
Yeah.
And so they looked the other way for a lot of crime and a lot of murders. And when Pendergast fell and was sent to prison in 1939, the city brought in an FBI agent named Lear Reed, who had worked on the Union Station massacre case and was well known in Kansas City. So they brought him in to clean up the department. And Kansas City elected a reform city council to clean up city government. But all the county offices, including the county sheriff's office, were still controlled by the machine. And so when Leila Welsh was murdered, the KCPD and the sheriff's office developed competing investigations to try to solve it first, to curry favor with the voting public. And they fought over witnesses, they fought over evidence, sometimes with officers and deputies having guns drawn at each other. And so it really, instead of working together, they really fought against each other, which ended in a rush to find someone who did it.
Are high-interest credit cards or personal loans weighing you down? Unlock gives homeowners a smarter option. With a home equity agreement, you can tap into your home's equity for cash today. There are no monthly payments. Here's how it works. Unlock provides funds upfront and in exchange shares in a portion of your home's future value. That means you keep control with the flexibility to use your equity your way. Pay off bills, invest in home improvements, or set aside savings for peace of mind. For thousands of homeowners, Unlock has been the key to moving forward without the pressure of another payment. Put your equity to work for you. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
So Eli, since we jumped a little bit ahead to an investigation of Leila's murder, tell us just a little bit about Leila and the circumstances of her murder.
Yeah, so Leila Welsh is she's the heiress to a Kansas City real estate fortune. Her grandfather, James Welsh, was instrumental in sort of building Kansas City up in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And she and her brother, George, and their mother, Marie, lived together in a small home not too far from here on Rock Hill Road. They were very modest, even though they had money. She had grown up originally near Lee's Summit and a farm, but they moved to Kansas City when she went to college at UKC or KCU. It's interchangeable, apparently, in 1935. And the three of them were extremely tight. They did everything together, and they really depended on each other. It was just one of those families where, mom and the two kids they do everything together. They know each other inside and out, and it's just this unit that is always going to be there for each other. So on the night of March 9th, 1941, Leila Welsh returns from the circus with her boyfriend at 1:30 a.m. And she walks into her home, which is, small. It's 1,400 square feet, and it's a pretty modest middle-class neighborhood down on Rock Hill Road. You've got, houses that are 10 feet away on either side and houses behind. It's a tight neighborhood, small backyard. So she walks into her home at 1:30 a.m. She sees her brother asleep on the couch. She goes in to see her mother, who has awoken when she walked in, kisses her goodnight, and then goes into her room. Now remember, this is really tightly packed. Her mother is in the next bedroom over. There's just a small bathroom separating them, but her mom is essentially 15 feet away from her in the next bedroom. She closes the door, and she takes a fateful step. She opens up the east window of her room because they have an old school boiler, and it is just blasting heat every night. So the only way to counter it, back then there wasn't like a nice thermostat that you could settle on. It was either on or off. And so she opened up the east window to her room in order to get cold air in and kind of balance it out, which was not uncommon for her. She goes, changes, 20 minutes later, she comes into bed, and then she falls asleep. At 3 a.m., Marie Welsh is suddenly awoken by the sound of two thuds, deep thuds. She doesn't know what it is. She wakes up and she tiptoes into the living room looking around, and she notices the light is on in the living room, and she turns it off, and she looks at her son who's asleep on the couch, and then goes back into her bedroom and falls asleep. And what she doesn't know is that 15 feet away in Leila's bedroom, a man has crawled through that open window where he had been waiting outside under a palapa tree for 5 hours in 31-degree weather waiting for her. And he had brought with him a kit of murder tools as well. So he's exposed in this backyard. There are 36 windows that police counted that looked right into that yard from neighbors' windows. And so he's waiting there for her. And once she gets home, he waits about another hour and a half, and then he sneaks in. And he has just used, at 3 a.m., he uses a 4.5-pound railroad track hammer or chisel hammer and has just fractured her skull. So over the next hour and a half, what he's going to do is essentially disassemble her body and exsanguinate her, meaning drain her of blood. In the house, in the room, while her mother and brother are sleeping just feet away. It's literally like our greatest fear is, waking up in the middle of the night and somebody standing over you and you're completely vulnerable. That's what happened to her. The police also, the scientific lab, detected a surge of adrenaline in her body, which means she likely woke up a half second before she was struck, which is extraordinary. If she had screamed, who knows what would have happened. But he's in there. What's so unique about this is that he doesn't just kill her, and he's not there to rob her. He literally disassembles her body. It's extraordinarily brutal. The mutilations are horrible, but he's in there a long time, which is very odd. And remember, the window, you can look directly into her bedroom from the neighbors' houses. If somebody had walked to, looked out their bedroom window or went to get a drink of water and looked out, they would have seen him doing his work. So he's in there an hour and a half, and then eventually he leaves. He has excised pieces of her body out, if you will. And then what's really odd is once he leaves the room, he actually leaves a trail of evidence throughout the backyards in the street, throughout the backyards between Harrison and Rock Hill roads around 60th and 61st. So there's this trail of all these bizarre tools, and then the gloves, and then the skin that he left behind. There's a piece of flesh that he left in a backyard. It's just this trail of things that he keeps leaving, which is really unusual because in the commission of a murder, the murderer does not want to leave any evidence, right? Any small piece of evidence can lead to your capture. Instead, he leaves everything, including this piece of flesh from her body. So what that effectively ends up doing is overwhelming the case. The police have so much evidence, they don't know what to do with it. He's also worn gloves, so there's no fingerprints, and there's other bizarre things like once he stepped out of the window back into the backyard when he was leaving, he pulled down the curtains and the drapes and then proceeded to fold them in almost like a formal dining napkin on the windowsill of the room, like a fan. Which, imagine you're standing out there in the backyard, completely exposed, and taking the time to do that. What kind of mindset is that person? So it's a murder that is shocking and disturbing, but there's all these tangential, bizarre acts around it. And those became really crucial to understanding what I believe were the parallels between Leila Welsh's murder and the murder of Elizabeth Short.
These people in the front row, they reacted how I did when I read your book, Eli.
Oh,
those face, that face right there.
I had the same face, but
yeah.
So at what point did you were you able to link these two murders and come to the conclusion that it was the same man who had committed both murders?
Well, what's interesting is that it's not my original theory. I didn't come up with this. The LAPD did in 1947. The investigation, the Elizabeth Short murder, when it occurred on January 15th, 1947, immediately sent shockwaves across the city. And it became national news within 24 hours. It was in newspapers in every state. The city was in an absolute panic. It was a brutal, horrific murder, and everyone was afraid that it was going to happen again and who was going to be the next victim. So they eventually, the police end up working with the state of California and the sheriff's department. They have over 1,000 investigators at one point working on this case. It's the biggest, manhunt in LA County history. It was extraordinary. It was enormous. And one of the suspects that they eventually got their hands on was a man who had been with Elizabeth Short for a 3-day period immediately before she leaves for San Diego in December of 1946. And this is a really big part of the mystery of the Black Dahlias. Why would she leave Los Angeles in the middle of the night at midnight for a city she had never been to, that she knew nobody in, and she had no money? Why would she go down there? And so she's in San Diego for a month, and she returns on January 9th, 1947, a very fateful day in true crime history. And that, maybe 3 hours after she arrives back in Los Angeles, she disappears, and 6 days later, her mutilated, severed body is found on the morning of January 15th, 1947. So, the police wanted to know, who was she with during that 3 days right before she escapes to San Diego? And they found a man by the name of Carl Balsiger, who had grown up in Kansas City and had gone to UKC, or now UMKC, with a woman in the 1930s, with a woman who was murdered in 1941 in what police, Leila Welsh, in what police refer to as strikingly similar circumstances to the murder of Elizabeth Short. So what they wanted to find out was, did he know Leila Welsh? And what were the details of the Leila Welsh murder? Because we know they're similar. We've got a guy who knew both women, or possibly knew both women. We know he was with Elizabeth Short. We don't know if he knew Leila Welsh yet, but there's all these similarities. We want to know all the details of this murder. And so through all that process, I began to think, wow, this is an amazing story that nobody's really looked into. Like, okay, we've got this guy, he's with her, she essentially escapes him to go to San Diego, and there's all these similarities between these two murders. That could signatures, killed these serial killers have these signatures that keep coming back up, and modus operandi that are similar as well. The LAPD immediately called over to Kansas City Police Department and said, hey, we need your files from the 6-year-old murder case of Leila Welsh. And we also want to look into Carl Balsiger. And Kansas City Police Department said, sure, no problem. And then they never sent the documents over. And LA asked again, and KCPD said, sure, no problem. And they never came. And this went on for about 3 or 4 years. And in fact, in the district attorney files in Los Angeles, it refers to the frustration over the multiple attempts to get the Kansas City Police Department to actually follow through on their promises. It's not as if Kansas City Police said, we're not going to do it. They kept saying, no problem. And then they never sent him over. So the LAPD was really hobbled in its ability to investigate this murder. They didn't know the details of the Leila Welsh murder. They just knew the broad strokes of what had been done to her. And then they didn't know whether Carl Balsiger knew Leila Welsh and what his relationship was. And that's where the case lay. Even though Carl Balsiger was at the top of the LAPD and the district attorney's suspect list until the early 50s, when the Black Dahlia case went cold. They continued to pursue him into the early 1950s. They never were able to investigate the Leila Welsh connection. And so all these years later, I thought, maybe it's time we do that. We have access to, incredible records online. Certainly Kansas City Police Department won't be as kind of withholding of documents, and there's an investigation to be made here, and nobody had done it yet. So it just seemed, let's do as much as we can here, which is part of the reason I reached out to Mr. Chris Wolf. And what we discovered was that the similarities in the murders are striking. And they are long. It is a really long list. And one of the things the book goes into is detailing what those similarities are. And I think when you read it, it's very likely that you'll agree that this appears to be, both these acts appear to be committed by the same.
Are you ready to finally make that dream a reality? Maybe it's updating your kitchen, paying down high-interest credit cards, or covering tuition. Your home is more than where you live. It's also your most powerful asset. At Unlock, we make it simple to turn equity into options. With a home equity agreement, you can access cash today without taking on monthly payments. Imagine the freedom to invest in your home, reduce financial stress, or finally start that big project you've been putting off. It's your home. It's your future. Unlock it today. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
Hand.
Why do you think the LA police didn't come to Kansas City after had not been? Why didn't they come here and get the information themselves?
It's a good question. I don't know. It's very possible there were jurisdictional differences there, and that you just didn't do that.
And they may have.
Yeah.
We just don't know about it.
We just don't know. But I think there probably was a reason. I don't think Kansas City Police Department forgot to send the documents over and over again. I think, we have different ideas about why that could be that they withheld those documents. But it's very possible that the reason simply is that the Leila Welsh case was extremely complicated. It was embarrassing for the city. It was embarrassing for the police department. And they might have not wanted the sort of mighty LAPD with all their scientific advancements and tools and, their top detectives to be looking at their work and criticizing them and telling them, boy, you really botched this case, which could damage the police department. They had something to protect in their reputation. So, it's very possible. Or there was something in those files they didn't want the police to see. We don't know. And maybe we'll be able to, maybe one day KCPD will open up some, hidden file and it turns out that it was the conspiracy can be known. But what we do know is that the LAPD just never had anywhere near the information that we have now. And so it's incumbent on us, I think, to do that research and investigation and to look at the totality of this and see if, we can finally figure out these murders. Yes, ma'am.
So, can you tell us a little bit about him?
Certainly. You want to take this one? I've been talking so much.
Yeah. So, spoiler if you hadn't read the book.
The murderer, native Kansas Cityan. He was the son of but yes, legend.
Well, he's dead, so
he's dead.
He's not going to be able to sue. So
yeah, he grew up here in Kansas City. His father was in the grocery business. Was one time head of the American Grocers Association, and became an executive with a bakery that eventually became Interstate Bakeries here in Kansas City. He could have had connections. It's very possible. But we have no evidence whatsoever that he had those kind of connections.
Though he did have... we one of the great things about our relationship is there's plenty of stuff we don't 100% agree on. And so I will counter, though, that he did have a close relationship with the police department going back to the 1920s. He was the head of the National Grocery Retailers Association. Yes, the father, Herman Balsiger, who was Carl Balsiger's father, and would ride along with the police to shut down grocery stores that stayed open till 9 o'clock. The guy was a real jerk. He was, yeah. By the way, these are the people he represents. These are his people. He's supposed to be representing them, and he would have the cops drive him around, and then he would shut down grocery stores that were open till like 9:15. And he also tried to drive immigrants out of the city that had their own businesses. He believed that no immigrant, legal or otherwise, should be able to own a business, even though his own parents were immigrants. So he
that sounds familiar.
Yeah,
it's all right.
So he was. There definitely was a relationship there, and he also sat on fire and police commissions. With respect, I'm just saying that there was a relationship there. They would have known him. Now, I think Chris's point is probably that whether he could have undue influence on the police department is another question, but there was a relationship there.
Yeah. But that relationship was in an earlier era, and in the early 1950s, Herman was at the end of his career, and I still think those relationships existed anymore.
Okay, well, we could keep going on this, but
apparently Christian read his own book.
I don't think there's a conspiracy here that Carl was being protected by the police here. I don't think that's the reason.
So I'm going to ask Chris a question. Is it just ineptitude? What's your take on why KCPD could not solve this? That they the poor brother who's asleep when this murder's going, they railroad him and put him on trial. I mean, that family had already gone through hell.
Right.
And this is just compounding it exponentially.
They were out to get him.
Right.
I mean, and, Eli covers most of this in the book, but I mean, just the horrible, interrogations that went on for days and days and days where they were just trying to force him to confess that he killed his sister.
It was torture.
Yeah. And
they took him to a cabin in the wilderness where there was a raging river and the water was freezing, and they dunked his head in the river to the point where he was gasping until he would confess. And that was just one of the many things they did. That's how things were back then.
Yeah.
So did the KCPD ever suspect Blessinger, the one you think?
In the Leila Welsh murder?
Yeah.
No.
So they never interviewed?
No, they looked at over 500 suspects, and they never were able to find one person that they thought could have committed this. They were totally lost. But again, part of the problem was that the case got derailed by the sheriff's department, which was in the grip of the Pendergast machine. And Pendergast wanted to beat the Kansas City Police Department to the punch, because if they could arrest a suspect and get them convicted in the case, all of a sudden the sheriff's department would be the heroes, and the KCPD would look terrible and inept, and now the Pendergast organization would reassert its power. And so they were determined to get that conviction, and they said, George, that's the guy. He must have done it. And yeah, as Chris is saying, the Welshes spent the next 2 years in absolute hell. Marie Welsh had lost her daughter and found the body. She was the first one to see it. Horrible. And then she had to face 2 years of her son possibly going to the gas chamber, and she fought with. I mean, the fight she put up is incredible. I don't know how anybody has the strength to do that. And one of the details I love is that when she finally has to give testimony about the relationship between her kids and to prove that George loved his sister, she's terrified of going in that courtroom because she knows the prosecution's going to try to destroy her. And she walks in, she kind of steels herself forward, and they open up the big oak doors. And on that day of testimony, when she walked in, she's walking down the room, the whole courtroom was filled with women and their daughters who had all come to support her. And she was astounded when it was all women, which, didn't happen back then. And the city showed up to say, we're with you, and there's these little moments, these human moments throughout, I think, are so important to, help kind of set the scene for what this case meant for the city and how, people's lives were really changed by it.
So I love the fact that, look at this crowd. I don't even need to have podcasts. Have all these people come out and ask questions. Go ahead, ma'am. I'll ask questions.
Together, by the way.
Yeah. Since, people that do these kind of killings, and, they're similar and everything, they don't usually stop. Were there anything?
I love how into this they are.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's one I wonder about too. So there's a couple other deaths in Balsiger's family and his first wife that I discuss in the book as well that I think are suspicious. And also, this is really intriguing. In 1968, when he's in his late 50s, he got into a lot of trouble over the years, over and over again. He was a stalker, he was violent against women, and he was a criminal. He embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars from insurance companies, and he's facing trial. And so he escapes to the Bahamas. And then a year later, he gets essentially extradited out of the Bahamas. He gets thrown out of the Bahamas. He got into some major trouble there. And the family never found out what it was. They wondered and they asked, but he didn't want to talk about it. But, in 1968 or 69, to get thrown out of the Bahamas, you got to do something really bad. So he gets tossed back in the United States. And instead of getting a job, getting an apartment, he takes out of storage in Kansas City his old Rambler white station wagon. And for the next 5 years, he lives out of that car, driving the highways of the upper Midwest, Nebraska, Ohio, Indiana, and he lives out of his car. And his family told me really weird details, like he had these huge jugs of motor oil in the back of the car. The kids could barely get in it when he visited a couple times. There were these weird jars in the back, and which he claimed were motor oil. Who needs that much motor oil? And there's some other sundry weird stories about his later life, but this was a very odd guy. And I just thought, man, for my next project, it'd be interesting to research if there were any mysterious murders in the early 70s and, along the 30 freeway and through Nebraska and all his different roads. It's, one has to wonder.
And this book is really going to open up Pandora's box. Yeah. There's going to be an army of internet sleuths out there that are looking right now, I'm sure. Everywhere Carl was, they're looking.
So, in fact, I got contacted by somebody who has been looking at Balsiger for a while now, too. And she told me that she's looking into a series of murders in one of the cities he was in, of a woman, one of them in which a woman had been exsanguinated, drained of blood, and kind of similar to these murders, who had lived 4 blocks away from where Balsiger lived in this city. So she's looking into, is there any? I know it's a Pandora's box. Who knows? But I love that other people are also working on it and looking into it. Yeah.
Do you know whether Kansas City police still have the volume of physical evidence?
Yeah, it's a great question. Just like LAPD, there is no. They're a vault. They're a black vault. They will not say anything about what they have, which files, what evidence, which I just think is so odd that police departments hold on to that stuff because it's 80 years. What's that?
Is that typical?
Yeah.
Well, I will say from doing this podcast for 3 years, KCPD has lost a lot of evidence. I don't know how many people remember the Leon Jordan case, where the gun that was used to kill Leon Jordan eventually got sold, and then they bought it back, and then it was actually in a police car. When they figured that out. So what you're hearing, we've heard a lot of this over the years. So
we tried to find court records, and I had the Missouri Historical Society search, and that all the court records from this amazingly famous trial are all gone.
Can we take a step back? Because before we get done, one of the things I applaud you for doing, Eli, was when you went and talked to a person, 103 years old, that actually found Elizabeth Short's body. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that was one of the big keystones of this whole book.
Absolutely. So, one of the most famous scenes in true crime history is the way that Elizabeth Short's body was found. It's so famous. Every podcast, every book, every article starts the same way. 26-year-old, pretty blonde housewife Betty Bersinger is walking down the street pushing a stroller with her 3-year-old daughter Anne down a 2-block stretch of weed-strewn lot when she turns to her right at 10:50 a.m. on January 15th, 1947, and there in front of her on the sidewalk is the cleanly bisected, mutilated form of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. The body is symmetrically posed, separated by about 14 inches. It's utterly shocking. It's been left out and laid out for everybody to see, ostensibly for the killer to show what he is capable of, what he has done. And so in 2 versions of the story in every telling, she either runs down to the nearest house and screams and says, "Oh my God, there's a body," or she thinks it's a mannequin and continues on to the next house and calls the police and says, "You better pick this up because it could scare kids." And that's the universally accepted, version of the story. And it's very famous, and like I said, it starts off every telling of the story. In fact, the Black Dahlia movie that Brian De Palma did, that's what's depicted, every depiction. But the thing that bugged me about this story that I couldn't understand is that this stretch of road is a heavily trafficked street. There's people up and down that street, throughout the morning. There's a streetcar stop a half block away, hundreds of commuters coming in. There's kids bicycling around she saw that morning. And there were witnesses who said they walked by that location 8:30 and 9 a.m. that morning and didn't see a thing. How could you not see this horrific form? The photographs are online. It's shocking. People are still, it hardened true crime aficionados. It's hard for them to look at these photos. It doesn't make sense that nobody saw the figure. And so I just kept thinking about that, and I thought the only person who could possibly answer the mystery of this is Betty Bersinger. But I didn't know if she was even alive. And then eventually I located, that 3-year-old daughter Anne that everybody always mentions that was with her. Well, she would have grown up by now. So I found Anne Bersinger, and contacted her. And I thought at first, she's going to tell me to buzz off. I'm sure she's gotten contacted by a million people, and I'm just the next guy who's doing it. But amazingly, she hadn't, and she was really gracious, and she got me in contact with her mother, who was 102 years old at the time. Yeah, and living in a retirement home, and had her faculties. And it's just a little detail I love is that every once in a while at the retirement home, other folks would come up to her and say, "Are you the woman who found the black dahlia?" And she would say, "Yes, I am." She was totally had all her faculties. She was clear-minded, and she remembered everything about that morning. And what she told me, because I asked her this question, she kept saying exactly as she said in 1947 in a couple interviews she did about 30 years ago. "I just saw this very white form, and then I thought it was a mannequin, and I moved on." But I kept pressing her on how could you have thought it was a mannequin? I mean, look at the photographs. It's you don't need to. You were there. But you look at the photographs. There's no way you would have thought it was a mannequin. And she said, "Well, it wasn't laid out next to the sidewalk." And I said, "What? That, of course it was. Everybody knows that is. That's the way it was laid out." And she said, "No, it was laid out. It was not even laid out. It was left in the weeds, the tall weeds, hidden about 14 feet away from the sidewalk. It had been thrown away like trash, which is terrible and disturbing. It's almost worse than being posed because just like every other serial killer in history, once his work was done, he discarded her in a weed-strewn lot filled with trash, just like she was trash. He had thrown her away. And so we don't have time for this, but the book goes into it. What happens is she sees the top half of the body, but it's face down. And she just sees the back, and it's very white because it's been drained of blood. And she does think it's half of a mannequin, so she calls the police. And at 11:09 a.m., the two cops, Perkins and Fitzgerald, show up, and they think they're there to take away half a mannequin. And then they find in the weeds the body, but they don't understand what the hell is in front of them. And so there's this 9-minute gap between the arrival of the first set of officers and the second set of officers. And the book explains what happened in that gap that would create this tableau that became world famous. Yes, ma'am.
How did the name Black Dahlia, who created that?
Yeah. So the legend is, and it's a true legend, when she first came to California, to Los Angeles, she was living with a boyfriend she'd come out for. She came out for a guy to L.A. And she's living with him in Long Beach. The relationship's already falling apart right off the bat, and she's going to leave him soon. But she's living in Long Beach, which is, near the water. And there's a pharmacy down half a block away from where she's living called the David Lander Pharmacy. And she goes there frequently because I don't know if anybody remembers or knows this, but back in the day, pharmacies weren't just for buying drugs. They'd sodas, and there'd be a counter, you can get food. So she would go and hang out there. And there were other folks there. And she wore her hair. Her hair was very big, and it was kind of in a big circle of black hair, and she loved to have her hair up. And so some of the folks at the pharmacy who got to know her said, your hair is like a dahlia flower. Dahlias are really big, and they're colorful. Dahlias are not, there's no such thing as a black dahlia, by the way. It doesn't exist. They're red and purple and blue and yellow, and so people loved how her hair was like this dahlia flower. And meanwhile, at the same time, half a block away is playing the 1946 film The Blue Dahlia. And so folks, would come out of the movie theater and go to the pharmacy, and there's that woman who has her hair like a dahlia, and they started referring to her as the Black Dahlia.
She was alive.
Yeah. It's always been repeated that she never would have known that name while she was alive, but I think she did. And in fact, I found this had never been printed before, but when she went down to San Diego, the last movie she ever saw was The Blue Dahlia, which I thought was ironic, just weeks before she was killed, like 3 weeks before. But what happened was the newspapers there were hundreds of reporters working on this story, literally, across the city. And one of the reporters, Jack Smith, who worked for the LA Daily News, found out that this pharmacy, she had been there. So he calls down, this is 2 days after the body is found, you got literally hundreds of reporters scouring for any detail to get the exclusive. He calls down to the pharmacy, and David Lander's son answers the phone and asks, and Jack Smith, the newspaper man, is asking him some questions. And Arnold Lander tells him, they called her the Black Dahlia. And Jack Smith, his jaw just drops. And he puts down the phone. He says, I'll call you back in a moment, and runs down the hall to the copy editor and says, I got something for you. And they stop it's literally one of these 1940s, stop the presses. And they change the headline. And, 2 hours later, it hits the street, and it creates a firestorm that goes around the nation.
And it really colors the way we've looked at her ever since. You go, let's listen to a podcast, you read about her online. It's like, oh, well, she always just wore all black. And, she was almost like Elvira of the 1940s, this temptress that prowled the streets. And that's all part of this persona that was created going back to the creation of that name. But the truth couldn't have been any more different. When they discovered her luggage at the bus station and opened it up, it was filled with frilly yellow and pink sweaters. And witnesses that described her talked about how she was always wearing bright colors and always, so cheerfully dressed. But, once that name, the Black Dahlia, took root, it really started creating this whole persona about her.
And to that point, I think that's so important, and it's a big part of the book, is understanding who she really was. Like, for instance, it's always portrayed that she was kind of a denizen of the night, going to nightclubs. She was always out with a different guy every night. You'll hear that in 1,000 podcasts.
Not mine.
Not his.
Not mine.
He sets the record straight.
Right. She was a porn actress. She was a prostitute. She was an aspiring actress.
That's
all
how
these.
he said it straight?
I know. Yeah, all these stories have cropped up.
Yeah. But the truth was, she was home by 10 o'clock every night. And most of the nights that she was in Los Angeles in fall, she was by herself going to see radio shows at CBS and NBC. And all the ushers there reported we saw her all the time going in to see, remember radio shows back then, you could go in and actually see them as they were broadcast live around the country. And she was mostly by herself at night going to see these radio shows. This whole network of myths that have been created about her that are completely untrue. And I just thought, let's take an honest look at who she was, and let's set the record straight, which I think is really important for this, because it's ultimately not about the killer. It's not a guessing game. It's not even about evidence. It's about this woman, Leila Welsh. And I think that, we owe it, if we're going to spend all this time on the case, we owe it to understand who they really were, and I think to honor and respect them.
Well, we're at 8 o'clock, so do we need to wrap up, or you want questions? All right.
Do we know how she crossed paths with this possible killer?
Leila Welsh?
No.
Elizabeth Short? Yeah, that's a really good question. So we know that he was with her between December 6th and December 9th, 1946. That's verified. But what I discovered in talking to the children of his former business partner is that he actually met her earlier in fall and had actually had dinner with her and knew her and was giving her money on occasion. And the book goes into detail about the full scope of that relationship and what eventually transpired during those 3 days and what transpired when she returned from San Diego and essentially came back to him. There's quite a bit of information that is now revealed in the book about what happened. Yes.
Yes, sir. At what point they killed Elizabeth Short? What point he killed her?
Oh, okay. You mean while she was in captivity?
Right, she was in her.
Yeah.
Her mother was in the other wife, and she screamed, and he killed her right away.
Right. So.
Okay, Leila.
Leila.
Leila. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. How long it was?
Yeah. Did he kill her right away?
Yeah. So he hit her in the head with.
Remember, the mom heard 2 thuds in the middle of the night.
Yeah. That fractured her skull, and there was a profuse amount of blood coming out of her head, but it did not kill her. And so she was still alive for the next few minutes. But he was in there likely about an hour and a half. It's possible he was in there longer, but that's an extraordinary amount of time to be in a room doing what you're doing. It's really, the whole thing is highly unusual, but so is the Elizabeth Short murder. And I think it's those unusual elements that in many ways tie them together.
All right, thank you, guys.
How did they interact? I mean, did he know? I mean, did he know him?
Yes. Very much so. And that's what was incredible. The LAPD never could ascertain whether they knew each other. They said they at least we know they went to school together, but it literally says in the district attorney notes, it's a fairly big school, and we just don't know if they ever crossed paths. Well, the research discovered that they knew each other for 10 years, that they were in the same social circles, they went to the same church, they went to the same lake house, Lake of the Forest, which is 30 miles west of here. There are myriad other ways that they interacted. They were in the same elite Greek social circle at KCU. They knew the same people. And in fact, one of the photographs of the book, you could see Balsiger in college standing next to Leila Welsh's best friend, who is looking at him with total suspicion. But there's literally a photograph of her best friend with it. They were around each other constantly, and I think that was one of the kind of the joys of the book, was being able to prove that they were in the same room over and over again, to determine where that was, when, and how they interacted.
That was a great conversation. I think you could probably tell the crowd was supposed to wait till the end to start asking questions, but they were shouting them out.
That's how you got them. That's so fantastic. And hey, just like we need to focus on her as a real person. That really spoke to me, by the way. You know why it spoke to me, James? Because that goes back to the heart of what we do here. Because we're about not sensationalizing horrific things, but talking about it in the context of the victims and what they went through, and how we believe that shining a light on these stories is hopefully a way of just trying to not only underscore how historically Kansas City is a rich place in a lot of ways, even on a negative side, but also to remind people who consume this kind of stuff, a lot of true crime fans out there, reminder, these are people we're talking about here, So I really appreciated that line. I really did.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job in his book of actually, laying out both individuals as human beings, not as victims, which was good. And the Black Dahlia case, that's been talked forever. And I'm glad they both brought that up about how they just made her into this caricature and all these stupid lies been told about her. But, and the bottom line, these were two young women with their whole life in front of them.
Right.
And not only did they lose they left in a horrific and in the Leila Welsh case, especially, I've driven by that house 1,000 times for years when you and I both lived in Brookside for a long time. Right. That's the way I'd go to work. And apparently the lady that lives there is aware of it, but she just not like people knocking on her door. So I guess what I'm telling people, don't go knock on this lady's door. Please don't. Leave her alone. So,
but when you said, I just a lot of the thing, we owe it to understand who they really were.
Absolutely.
That was great.
And that poor family. So here's gives you a little faith in humanity. And I hope Mr. Frankel won't care that I'm bringing this up, but I don't think he will. In the crowd on that night was Leila Welsh's niece, who was the daughter of the brother who was railroaded, and they tried to convict and they tortured him and all that. She was there.
Wow.
And she came up to him afterwards, and she's also named Leila. She is named after her aunt.
Wow.
And said about she would like some more books for her family. And they didn't have any free left. Eli Frankel got his wallet out and bought her his own book and gave it to her. So there's still good people in the world. I don't even know if he noticed that I saw him do that, but he did that. So to your earlier point, these are real people. That the Welsh family, between losing her in her home, which is horrific, then having the poor brother be railroaded, spend 2 years of his life fighting that. That's just, it was a sad thing. So it was nice to see the Welsh family was there. So anything else you want to talk about the book? And
just that it was, again, really good job. And thanks to Rainy Day Books for including going to Killing City. By the way, it's just, I want to segue into something real quick, but I'll do it after we kind of put a pin in this, because I've got something else I want to mention to you. But I love that we're thanks to the support of our listeners that we are getting some attention from situations like this, because it bugs me that I couldn't be there in a way, because I have a podcast, Mysterious Goings On. I've interviewed literally hundreds of authors over the years, and I love to talk to authors. I joke with Jamie, I was like, oh, they're dreary AF. I don't want to go, haha. I just couldn't go. But Jamie handled everything really well. But I love that, and I hope we can get more authors to come and go a little bit on the show. And Rainy Day Books, again, thanks for having us. Maybe one of these days we'll come back.
Yeah, and they just celebrated their 50th anniversary. This is a jewel here in Kansas City. If you have not taken advantage of Rainy Day Books and all the amazing programming that they have,
right,
do so. Because they have a cavalcade of authors that come in. So if you're a fiction person, they'll have fiction people. You like nonfiction. I'm just saying that, follow them. If you're not, you'll get an opportunity. I got to meet Ian Rankin, which we know where that went, where I got to have pints with him in the pub in Edinburgh. Right. David McCullough, George Pelicanos. I'm trying to think of all the Anna Quinlan, Gloria Steinem. These are just the ones off the top of my head that Jimmy Carter that I have seen and I know you have utilized Rainy Day Books too. So it's a great resource. Please check them out as well.
Yep. Very good stuff. Hey, I was going to tell you that, and I'll talk to you more offline about it, but I spoke to a former homicide detective from North Texas. Okay. And I think we might have something interesting if we do one of our for subscriber paid only kind of shows. But we could talk about. I'll talk to you more about it offline, Jamie. But I want to tease the listeners: if you want to get in the Black Hand Society, get in our Speakeasy Club. It's all at links are all over the place at killingcitypod.com and on our Substack. And hey, life's getting busy, but we're trying our best to keep the Substack operating. But it's operating, but we're going to keep adding more and more content to it. But I thought maybe if we get this guy on, Jamie, next year, he can do a little bit in general that we could share with everybody, just talking about solving crimes or trying to on a modern homicide detective, and but there also be some subscriber only special secret squirrel stuff on top of that.
And looking forward to that. And yes, subscriber only got to hear all about Mary McElroy. So that's an episode that you only get that if you're a subscriber. So we'll continue to do those. But yes, we were both very busy. It's just part of life. Okay.
Could I do one more thing?
You can do whatever you want, sir.
You got to do a little log rolling, so I'm going to do a little real quick. Folks, if you are looking for Christmas gifts, don't forget, please, that I write a few things, or I used to write a lot of fiction. I don't as much anymore, but I still have books I can autograph for you in my award-nominated mystery series, the John Pilate Mysteries. That's Pilate. And if you'd like autograph books, just get a hold of me atjalexandergreenwood.com or through Killing City. I don't think Jamie minds. And I've got plenty on hand right now. I had a book fair I normally go to that I had to imagine that bow out of because of scheduling. So I'm sitting on a little bit of a surplus here in the old hacienda, and I'd be happy to autograph them, personalize them to whomever for Christmas gifts. I would say if you want to do that, please get me no later than, I could say, December 18th ish at the latest, I would think, although we can probably expedite things a little bit if we have to. And also, if you're just like, I don't need an autograph book, but I would sure like to check out a Kindle version, go to Amazon.com, and pretty much through the month of December, there's going to be some discounts and or freebies. So thanks for letting me do a little log rolling. That's jalexandergreenwood.com. I'll try to remember to get some links for the show notes, but you know where to find me. And it's the John Pilate Mysteries. There's 8 books in the series, and I think you might enjoy it.
If you haven't figured out by now that Alex is a really good writer listening to the episodes, then shame on you. So
thank you.
He does a great job. Really good writer. That's why I put up with his bullshit. He writes well. That's it. That's the list.
We are just a ball of love for each other lately. It's been pretty good.
Oh my goodness. All right. So next month is Alex. It's been a bit. It's been a bit since you wrote one. This is we had a little interlude with Mr. Frankel, but we're back on schedule. So tell the people my hint for the December episode, and then I got a little teaser about January. Go ahead.
All right then, Jamie, get ready. 3 words. This is the clue. By the way, if you're a new listener, we give each other who Whoever's off that month has to give a clue because they're on next month to tell the story. And it's my turn, as Jamie said. And the clue for the killer cocktail that Jamie has to concoct is ash and oil.
That's going to be lovely.
Mm-hmm. Ash and oil.
That was one of my favorite groups in the 70s.
They were right up there with bread.
Right? Totally. All right, so that's that. Lastly, I know we've been teaching this for a while, but that's just how we roll. Jean Peters Baker is our January episode. She's going to be coming on, and we know how popular those are, so stay tuned for that. So
kicking off 2026 the right way with Jean Peters Baker.
Exactly. And so until next month, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. That's one of those ones that I know everybody celebrates. I, of course, will be not having my phone on as Alex Greenwood torments me about how badly the Chiefs are beating my Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, I forgot we were playing, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh my! I don't know the way we've been playing. We might. They might be, out to lunch.
I can't imagine you could lose to a defense that bad, but it's anyway. It's Jerry Jones lives to torment me. I just say that. Lives to torment me. I've had a shirt for years that says Jerry makes me drink with the Cowboys logo. It's more germane than ever. It's horrible. So, anyway. All right, people. Be safe. Happy holidays. Come see us at the Speakeasy Spa. Even if you hate us both, even if you think those guys are both morons, they're dopes. Free booze, free tacos, free massage. Come on.
And by the way, the massages are not being given by me or Jamie. So that's even better.
It's not that kind of show. No. These are licensed massage therapists. They are licensed. They are the real deal. It's not one of those skeevy ones you see, on an interstate that you've seen.
Right.
It's
right.
not. These are professionals. It's a really cool space. It's an amazing space. You'll have a good time there. So
I haven't been there. I'm looking forward to it, brother. Thank you for making this happen.
All right. Until next time, be safe, people. Head to Safeway this week and enjoy these amazing deals. Clip coupons from the weekly mailer or download them from the Safeway app to breeze through checkout. Get Overjoyed Boutique Dozen Roses for $24.99. Hand-dipped Belgian chocolate-covered strawberries 4 to 18 counts start at $7.99 per package. USDA Choice Boneless Beef Top Sirloin Steak Value Pack or Boneless Beef Tri-Tip Roast Untrimmed Twin Pack just $5.99 per pound member price. Visit Safeway.com for more details. See you in the aisles.